Hey guys, Dr. Mike Israel here for RPU, RP Plus, etc. Lecture number 7 in Muscle Gain Nutrition, adjusting your timing, food composition, and supplements as you are gaining muscle mass. We're going to look at all 3 of these throughout. So first, timing adjustments. What potential adjustments? Remember, in earlier lectures, we already laid out what the basic timing should look like. What adjustments could we potentially make to make our journey a bit smoother and more effective? First, you could eat earlier before workouts or eat less before workouts and more at other times of the day. Why? When you're mass gaining, when you're muscle gaining, you are eating so much food that if you eat too soon before a workout or too much food, you could get real sick and real vomity and your performance could decline or not even happen. And after you throw up squatting, you might not want to squat anymore. It's a really trippy thing for folks who have dieted for fat loss, attempting to most of their fitness careers, to even consider this. Like, how could this be possible? If you imagine eating 2 pizzas and then trying to go squat. I mean, geez, that's a recipe for disaster. Now, that's not saying that's how you diet, but I mean, if you wake up and have breakfast that's 150 grams of carbs, 15 grams of fat, 50 grams of protein, you have a mid-morning meal at 11 a.m. that's basically that size, you're just not going to go at 12 to do your workout because you're just going to vomit all over the place. If you don't vomit, you'll just feel super stuffed and super sick. So sometimes because you've added so much food throughout the weeks of your muscle gain phase that you've got all this food built up, you might want to say, I usually eat at 9 in the morning and train at 11. I'm going to push it back to 8 in the morning. And then it'll give me more time to digest the food, clear the GI tract, and I'll feel better. It works every time. Or you could lower the size of that meal, but remember, you'd have to add those calories somewhere back in. Second one, what you can start doing is starting to take workout shakes if you're not used to them, or increasing the size of your shakes. Why? Because shakes are a super easy way to get more calories. You don't have to be hungry for them. They digest rapidly, so on and so forth. Right after or during a workout, listen, think about it this way. If you can sip Gatorade and whey protein during a workout, that's calories you take in during a workout, which normally you would just be missed opportunities, missed time to take in calories. And if you sip nice and slow, it gives you some good workout energy, hydrates you as well if you have the right proportion of water and potentially salt. And so it's all positives and no downsides, especially if it's not so much fluid or so much Gatorade or so much carbohydrate and protein that it makes you sick during the workout, right? So sip as you can, as you tolerate. You can increase a lot of calories just through the workout shakes alone. Hilariously, if muscle gain gets really far ahead and you really start to be stuffing yourself, ironically, you're reducing shake sizes is something you might end up doing. So when you start mass gaining, you might not have workout shakes. Halfway through mass gaining, you might get up to pretty big workout shakes. And then towards the end, you start, all of your other food starts to get so high that you're never clearing your GI tract completely. When you start drinking your workout shake, pretty soon you're up full to the brim again. You have to squat, you're getting throwing up, or so you're getting vomiting. And that's really not good. So at some point when you're really pushing your training very hard with high volumes, and when you're sort of more out of shape because you've put on a little bit of mass and a little bit of extra body fat towards the end of a muscle gain phase, and when you're eating so much food that even your shakes get squeezed, you might consider reducing shake sizes, a little bit more, percentage of water and a lower percentage of carbohydrate and protein, because if you had any higher, it would be too sweet, too much food, you get to throwing up, and then that serves nobody any good. Number 4, what you could potentially do is add food volume to evening meals, because you literally can't eat big meals around your workouts. If you train with really high volumes, right? We already talked about if you train with high volumes, you might not be able to eat a lot of food before workouts because you just throw up. But if you train with really high volumes, you get a bump of sympathetic nervous system activity, right? Like you're just like disturbed, right? You're aroused in the physical sense, and you're fight or flight, and you can't eat for a lot of food for the next 30 minutes, even an hour after training, because you're that fight or flight still from your workout. In addition to that, your blood is in your tissues and your legs or in your shoulders or something, and it's not in your GI tract, so that again prevents you from developing a lot of hunger. Parasympathetic drive is down. You might not be able to eat much, so what you end up doing is you eat what you can after the workout, and then slowly as the workout window leaves and you start to feel better and better, you eat more and more and more, which potentially means you eat more meals in the evening or early morning, depending on where you train. So that's definitely an option. Again, these aren't things you do proactively. These aren't things that are like, I'm gaining a lot of weight, should start eating more in the evening. Absolutely not. You try, of course, to eat most of your carbohydrates or more of them in the workout window. It's going to be a situation where I can't do this anymore, and then it's okay to spread it out. Number 5, you can add a middle of the night shake. And this is real extreme stuff. Real hard gainers, folks that really need to pound the calories. I've done this before. You basically can predictably, especially this is easy if you predictably wake up to pee at least once a night. You wake up to pee, you walk to the fridge, you take a shake, you fill it with your urine, and you drink your urine. I'm totally kidding. People have done that before. So what you do is you take a shake that you pre-made. It's a casein shake or whey protein shake. You slam it, you wash out the container, put it in the dryer rack, pee, go back to sleep. That's it. And that gives you another bolus of food. I would recommend just protein, but potentially you could add carbs to that down the line if you're really desperate. And that gives you just more times to eat, right? You're just eating kind of all the time. And sometimes that's what it takes. People say, well, you never have to do that. Well, if for the last month you've gained zero amount of weight and during the day you've stuffed yourself with as much food as you possibly could, yeah, it's time to add a middle of the night shake. That's all I'm going to say. Next one is, or the last one here of timing adjustments, you can start to even out your weekly intake. Let's say you train 5 days a week, okay? Sort of ideally, by a small margin, most of your calories or more of your calories should be on your training days and slightly fewer should be on your off days, just because it's not as much energy demand. But then you think about it, if you're pushing, you have 2 hours of training on your 5 training days, before you can't eat a lot because you'll throw up, during you can't eat a lot because you'll throw up, and after you can't eat a ton because you're still sympathetic overdrive. So there's a limit to how much you can eat on training days. Some people say, well, I love training days because I get to eat more. Like when you're massing and you start getting really big, you're like, man, training days are tough for me to get enough food in. It's a really different problem. So what you might do is instead of using your weekends, for example, let's say Saturday and Sunday you have off, Monday through Friday you train super hard. Instead of Saturday, Sunday, lowering your carbs, lowering your fats, lowering your intake to have less food then because, you just don't need as much because you're not active. That's when you eat more of your food. So you basically, instead of having your workout days be this much food and your off days be this much, your workout days shrink because you can't eat that much, and your off days are basically the same. Somebody could say, they could watch you pound a ton of rice and chicken on a Saturday morning or something, Saturday afternoon lunch with your friends, and they're like, whoa, you got a big workout coming up today? Or did you train early this morning? You're like, nope. They're like, oh, you carb loading for tomorrow? You're like, nope. Like, why the hell are you eating so much? Well, because otherwise I won't gain weight. It's the total calorie load per week that matters for weight gain the most. And you got to fuel the machine, because if you can't fuel it on the days you train enough to gain the weight at the rate you need, you're going to have to fuel it just when you can. Myself personally, currently, I train jiu-jitsu on 4 days a week usually, and I train bodybuilding sometimes with 2 a days, for sure 6 days a week. So I get one total rest day. Am I eating less on that rest day? No way. I'm just trying to recover from everything else I'm doing. My rest day has at least as much food as every other day. So, if you're training a ton and you have trouble gaining weight, you can really forget to a considerable extent that eating less on non-training days goes out the window. All right. Food composition adjustments. How are we going to treat those as we gain weight? What can we do with the content of our food, the actual food choices, to make sure the process is more smooth? One is, as we mentioned before, increasing the use of shakes, right? Especially with whey protein, to reduce whole food protein intake and make it easier to get all the food, right? If you're eating 250 grams of protein per day and all of that has to come from meat, your teeth are going to fall out of your mouth. You're going to chew so damn much. And all the carbs and all the fats, it's just burdensome to eat that much food. If you take 2 whey shakes, each of, 40 grams or something like that, that's way less actual meat or vegan protein that you have to eat. If you're vegan, you wouldn't be whey shakes. They would be, some other kind of shakes, maybe soy protein shakes. Pound those shakes, and then it's that much easier to get in your daily protein. And let's be honest, daily protein when you're not hungry is the hardest thing to pound in. You can pound in some carbs and fats. They're pretty tasty. Protein is just a chore. So just using protein shake can make it easier to get all the food. And you can even do meal replacement shakes, and we'll talk about some of those in just a bit. Another one, switching from casein protein at night, right, for your last meal, to a whey at night. And you think, well, what are you talking about? Whey is fast digesting, the night is long. We need fast digesting, we need slow digesting, because casein, is slow and it really just takes care of us the rest of the night. Well, check this out. If you're so backed up on your digestion that by the time you get to your casein shake at 10 p.m. before you go to bed, that you're up to the brim, literally, with food, if you take a whey shake and drink it, it's going to take like 6 hours for that whey to even start digesting, because it's got like 3 of the last meals that you ate backed up all the way up before that. So casein is, the benefit of casein on a diet is that it's like a lot, like especially casein pudding, it's like a lot of sludge. It really fills you up. It sits in your stomach. That's nothing we want on a mass gain in which we're really pushing things. Whey goes down super smooth. It's super easy to digest. Pound the whey shake or any faster digesting protein than casein, because you just have no trouble whatsoever keeping nutrients around the clock because you're so backed up. Right? I don't know if you guys have ever had the experience if you eat so much food in one day that you wake up the next day not hungry and you're like, oh, you're still burping up food from yesterday. You're like, my God, I've been digesting that all night. Like, that definitely happens. And if that's happening, I would recommend switching to whey at night instead of casein. Your whole 8-hour digestion is just patented. It's built in already to the system because you have to digest 7 hours of steak and then 1 hour of whey or something. Next one, and this is one that is a sort of a cautionary approach here. Remember, you still want to eat as healthy as you can, but fundamentally gaining muscle mass, gaining weight, unless you're underweight to begin with, and most of you are not, it's a trade-off for performance and health to some extent. It's not the healthiest thing in the world to be overfeeding yourself. Sometimes when you eat enough food, you cannot eat veggies, fruits, and whole grains in the amounts you used to, because you'll literally just shit yourself to death, or maybe not literally, figuratively shit yourself to death, and you just poop 8 times a day. You just get over it real quick. Or you get to levels of fiber that are sustainable, or it just becomes impossible to eat that much food, because remember, veggies, fruits, and whole grains in that order are very hunger suppressive. Man, you could say, I'm on a 600 gram of carb a day diet. And if someone says, we eat mostly veggies, fruits, and whole grains, right? If you tell them yes, they'll be like, how the hell do you eat that many? And you're like, well, no, so hold on. It's not all veggies, fruits, and whole grains. And listen, if anyone wants to take the challenge, this is just a joke, don't really take it. Go ahead and try to eat 800 grams of carbs a day with mostly veggies, fruits, and whole grains. And I don't mean just almost all whole grains and just a little bit of veggies and fruits. You're cheating. A third veggies, a third fruits, and a third whole grains. I mean, good God. I mean, that's going to take you to like 150 grams of fiber per day, where 50 is plenty for most people. It's going to be a disaster, right? You're just not going to be able to sustain the effort. And even if you do sustain the effort, it's just going to cause you GI problems. So at some point, you might want to just, have a certain amount of fruits, veggies, and whole grains that you eat that you carry over from your fat loss days. And as you add food when you're already nice and not hungry, just add it from more processed sources. White rice, potatoes, pasta, instead of really whole grainy kind of earthy stuff. Might be better for your digestion, might be easier to take in, so on and so forth. And on that note, eating more processed grains is totally fine on a mass gain phase if you need to. Again, if your hunger is good, I would just eat the healthy stuff more often. But if you're really having trouble stuffing it in, eating more rice, cream of wheat, that kind of stuff, I mean, yeah, it doesn't compare to fruits and veggies and whole grains, but it's very healthy still, and you got to do it if you're going to get in that number of calories. Another one. Really sort of, I don't know if it's counterintuitive, but most people think oils don't taste all that great. Nuts are amazing, taste amazing. I can eat 18 handfuls of nuts when I'm on a fat loss diet. The thing is, when you're on a muscle gain diet, things get really weird, especially when you get not hungry. Eating nuts when you're not hungry really gets tough. Like the almonds, every part of your mouth seems to be filled with them at the same time. You take these gulps of dry almond, chew, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to choke to death on these things. And you look at it and you're like, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? It gets tough, right? Oils, here's the thing about oils. If you're adding fats with oils, you just have chicken and rice, you pour in some oil and maybe some soy sauce. It actually makes the meal easier to eat, right? Because it's not dry. And you got in 30 or 40 extra calories or 100 extra calories just by sprinkling some oil on there versus having to shove, nuts down and choke on them shits. It just gets annoying. Don't take my word for it. Try a real aggressive mass phase, or try getting real big and eventually eating a lot of food and eating lots and lots of handfuls of nuts. Man, it gets to be a bit much. Just chewing on almonds after a while is like, forget this. So oils can make things easier, no problem. And here's sort of maybe not the worst news. Here's the last shocker. Even nut butter can be a bit much when you've gained enough weight and you still have to gain more. If you're really stuffing yourself, oils have this magical quality, especially like olive oil or canola oil that are lightly flavored. You can't tell when they're in your food. or you can barely tell. And if you can tell, it makes food creamier and tastier and go down easier. It actually makes it more palatable, right? Nut butter at that point, when you're super overfull, I don't know if any of you guys have ever run into this. Like, you look at a spoon of peanut butter and you're like, that's going to take me an hour to swallow, because you put the peanut butter in your mouth and it instantly coats every conceivable surface area of your mouth and sticks to the roof of your mouth, and you're like, you try to swallow it, and it's just terrible. And even you're overmassing or really pushing it when peanut butter is too sweet for you to even eat. You're like, this is, oh my God, it's like I'm eating Nutella or something like that. Or like, it's crazy talk on a fat loss diet. If you're watching this on a fat loss diet, by the way, I'm really sorry. On a fat loss diet, you're like eating peanut butter and you're like, I could legitimately eat like 5 jars of this and no one could stop me. On a mass gain phase, we used to have a thing where we'd say like your mass phase is really kicking into high gear when you actively refuse peanut butter. If you know that's happening, no big deal. Switch to oils, because some people think like, okay, if I can't eat peanut butter anymore, there's no way I can add calories, because I love peanut butter and there's no other easier way. There is adding oils, putting them in food, great way to add calories, but is way more sustainable in the long run. Not as tasty, but at that point, things that are tasty actually sort of actively avoided because they're too sweet, too filling. What about supplement adjustments? The biggest recommendation I can make is for mass gainer shakes. If you choose to have mass gainer shakes, the number one thing you have to remember is, to quote Goku from Dragon Ball Z and Super Saiyan transformation, the transformation has to come from a need, not a desire. Okay, lame as that analogy is, it's the same thing for mass gainer shakes. You don't have the shake because you want to shake and you think it's going to have some kind of magical properties and somehow it's going to make you jacked. It's got no magic at all. It just has carbs, proteins, and fats, but it's just calories, right? But if you need the shake, then you need the shake. Which means if you're already eating tons of whole food and you can't stuff any more whole food in, like you're just over it, short of resorting to junk food, you might choose a mass gainer shake. And here's what the mass gainer shake should look like. It should have high carbs and low fats. So an example, I'm not paid by Optimum Nutrition to say this. No professional or personal association with that company. They just make damn good shit. Optimum Nutrition Serious Mass has, in one serving, which is 2 giant shakers, by the way, something they don't tell you, it's a lot, 50 grams of protein, 250 grams of carbs, and only 5 grams of fat. And those carbs, by the way, are maltodextrin, so they break up into glucose super quickly. Amazing. And you can jam at least half of that down, no problem, and not even notice. It's great in a peri-workout window. So the way you can have these shakes is usually you'd have your post-workout meal of like cereal or something like that, and it would just keep you stuffed for hours and you barely get your chicken and rice later. Forget that cereal meal, have a mass gainer shake instead, and within like 40 minutes or something, you'll be pretty empty feeling again and you'll be ready to eat. It's a super fast way of getting in tons of calories, right? If you go another route and you don't buy the Optimum shakes, your shake, whatever one you buy or you make, has to be very easy to get down. Like if it's tough to get down, why are you eating it? People make these mass gainer shakes with ice cream and stuff like that, and they're like, it takes them an hour to drink the thing. Like, you might as well just have a meal at that point, right? The higher glycemic index it can be, the better. Because not only is it easy to get down then, but it goes through super quick. It gets absorbed super quick, and you're ready to eat your next meal again super quick. Optimum, the Serious Mass shakes, holy crap. If you're like normal, if you're not super stuffed from a meal before, post-workout, you have that shake, you had better have food around within an hour and lots of carbs, because otherwise you go rebound hypoglycemic. That's how glycemic that shake is. It's amazing. Right? Best taken post-training, we already mentioned that. You can take it potentially pre and post. A little secret for you guys, when I was massing recently and I had 900 grams of carbs per day, here's how I got the edge. I don't recommend that you ever start with this. It's something, again, that has to come from a need, not a desire. I woke up and I would have one Optimum Nutrition Serious Mass shake, 250 grams of carbs. In my workout, 2 hours later, I had 100 grams of carbs from Gatorade and 40 from protein. After post-workout meal was another Serious Mass shake of 250 grams of carbs. For those of you keeping count at home, that is 600 grams of carbs in the workout window, and that's a total time of like 5 hours. Then, all I needed to do was eat 300 grams of carbs through whole food, which took fucking heaven and earth, by the way, to do, and I had the rest of the day to do it. I had like 8 hours or something like that. You know, even then it was tough. But look, could I have eaten 900 grams of carbs of just whole food? No way. Not possible. For me, not possible. Other people might be able to do it. So potentially you can take it pre and post. Clearly not right pre. If you take 250 grams right before your workout, it's just going to come out the same way it came in. Right? It's helped me in dire times, big time. I would highly recommend one of these shakes. People say, you know, like I've literally heard people say, I eat food and there's no way I can gain weight. With Optimum Nutrition Serious Mass Shakes or a comparable product, you'll gain weight. You fucking will. Unless you got 0.01% of the population because they've got a miraculous metabolism, then just enjoy being lean the rest of your life. Last consideration on supplement adjustments. If you are a big pre-workout fan, and especially if you're a pre-workout fan and you're a coffee drinker or a Monster drinker or tea drinker or a caffeine user, you can get into situations where you end up using the normal amount of stimulants or even more stimulants to help you train hard on a muscle gain phase. And what that ends up doing is it's just an inhibitor on your appetite. So I think when I consult people, when they say, hey, listen, I can't get all this food down, one of the questions I ask is like, do you drink coffee or tea or something? And like, oh yeah, like 3 Monsters a day. I'm like, well, you know, that suppresses appetite. And some people don't even know that. They're like, well, caffeine suppresses appetite? Like, yes. I say, you know, if you can tolerate it, just try to cut down your caffeine intake and replace it with food. They do that and they end up gaining weight because they get some hunger back and everything goes well. So just consider your stimulant dosage. And when hunger is a real big problem, when you're really trying to like just really struggling to stuff food down, give some thought to potentially reducing your stimulant intake and it might help. All right, that's it for this lecture. Next up, misconceptions and special circumstances in muscle gain, the last lecture of the series coming up. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and I'll see you next time.